we're going to be breaking down just the movie The Joker and finding a couple different scenes, breaking them down into understanding the mood and how the lighting and color is set to make the shot. Let's go start off with our first scene. I like to start off with the scenes just understanding the wide shots and then going to the tight shots. So he's on the phone. Everything, as we can see, we can kind of see the highlight, the bright points, the dark points, the colors, dark light is the situation. So let's break that down into a pixelated version. That way you kind of see it a little bit better on how the light is. Really kind of bright. The teal and orange is really coming through. Dark, light, light, dark. That's kind of a lot of cinematography tries to do on some scenes. It's to create depth in the image. Then we can see kind of our color palettes that's being picked out. Meatloaf, that's pretty funny. And so now let's go back and look at the LumaScope really quick to see how this image is set. So if you're not sure what a LumaScope is, different editing softwares have this, and even different monitors when you film. And so starting understanding is this line right here is 0, which means complete black. 0, there's no detail at all. So if you look at this wall and then look at this lower point, this is in nearly solid black. Over here, the highlights, this is where the window is, and as it progresses further, we kind of see the light. So if I crop this image, we can kind of see a breakdown where the bright points of the window. We'll kind of bring it all the way over towards this really practical in the background. See what this brightest point is around 85. And then on the low point, the darkest blacks, it is almost, basically this point up here is almost that solid black, but it's keeping around the 5. So let's bring that back. I'm gonna be taking my best guess as to where the lights, how many lights are set up. So first we'll do, I know for sure this is 1. There's 1 light from here. 2, that's our second light, was a practical, and then 3, this is an off-camera light that was set through when he walked in, and there was kind of a lamp there, and then 4 potentially just for an ambience color. So we'll first break this down into the first one. See the light kind of coming in, spilling in, it's kind of hitting his shirt, and then it's also kind of edging out his face a little bit to kind of pop from the background. Now let's go into our second one. It's a little bit of a teal, and from the teal one, the light comes down, it's hitting the table, and then just kind of goes over, and it potentially hits some of his hair up here. It's kind of hard to say. That could be a hair light that's kind of off shot, so it's a little bit hard to notice if it is or not. I'm guessing there might be, but it could be bouncing off the wall. So next we'll go into our third light source, and we'll just kind of create this a little bit warmer. So here we see the light kind of spilling in, it's hitting his arm, and then it's really making him pop from the background if we just look at to see where the light is coming. And then from our fourth, which is our ambient light, we can see this is kind of just a little bit more color is being shown since it's the light is coming through. Potentially it could be filtered through this. My guess is they might have just shot just a little bit of a light up in the corner just to fill the space to have more texture. So that's going to be our first one. We'll go on to the next scene. This is him on the phone. Once again, this is the close shot, the tight shot of his face, and then understanding how is the overall color, just a pixelated version, is really kind of nice. So you can see we have some teals here, the face, the skin tones, and the highlights, the brightest point is either here or here, and then shadows, and then here's our color palettes. Let's go back to the LumaScope for this one, and we can see if we look over here, we can kind of see the brightest point, some brighter points, skin tones. So let me just kind of crop it over to see the skin tones right in there on his nose, this part here. And notice how they're really keeping it really dark, but it's not really touching 0. So here's the shadow, it's around 15, but it's still textures. So let's go back. So now I'm going to break down the overall light structure. I know for sure there's one up here. It's casting that kind of that cooler teal light on his nose, and then 2, that's just kind of filling in the spots. It's kind of bringing up the overall exposure as it kind of cuts over. It's keeping the kind of that warmer and more natural look. So now we'll go over to start off with just number 1, which is going to be the teal. So here we can see the teal is kind of hitting his face here, and then on the cheekbone, on the nose, as well, and then potentially up here as well. And this is where potentially where a third light could be kind of focused in on this spot here to have them pop more from the background, or it could just be a bounce in general that's kind of filling in that, making it really bright. So it's hard to say, but we'll go on to our second light where we have, this is more of the more natural light that's coming around, it's hitting his hand, and then we kind of see it fills in some of the spots here and just kind of wraps around his face. So there we can kind of see it curves around. My best guess, to be honest with you, this light is probably a little bit more at an angle focused towards him and kind of filling in the line where it kind of stops in through here. And then my best guess for the teal would more than likely be at kind of more of an angle from the character, coming in and kind of making this point just more a little bit offset to kind of edge him out a little bit and add some more colors. And then the overall final, in order to create the overall midtones or shadows to create some depth, they could have filled the space, but that's a little bit hard to guess. So there we have it for that one. So right now we're going to progress finally to the last scene. It's our final one. This is where the character, the Joker, he's already kind of turned more into the Joker. So let's just kind of be looking at, here's the image we're going to be going over. And then let's just look at to see how the pixel versions looks. So we have some light over here to the left. And then we see some brighter light over here, a little bit of the colors. And then here we just have our color kind of palettes, that some of the ones that come from it. Now let's look at the Luma scope. Over here we can see that just right around where the 5 is as usual, and around the 85 to 80 on the Luma. Crop that over and see what it looks like. We can kind of see now. This is where the lamp is from right over here, this part here. And now let's just kind of keep going over. Here we have our bright points. And now we'll just cut it from the other side just to kind of bring it over. Here we can kind of see this part here. As always, we'll go through and we'll just pick our light sources, how many we have. I'm going to say 1. Let's do 2, 3, and I'm going to say 4 is over here. Some people might disagree. There's a reason. We'll get to the reason why I believe it's a 4th light over there. So let's first start off with the first one. It's just a simple light coming in from the window. You can tell that it kind of has some haze or like some fog in the room to create a little bit more of an atmosphere that kind of comes in, that draws to show where the light's coming from. And then it's just kind of touching on a little bit of the arm as well, and then also the seat, and then potentially it potentially could be also hitting the coffee table. There could be a 5th light that's somewhere off camera lighting this up to bring in a little bit more, but it's kind of tough to, it's honestly kind of a little bit tough to say if it is or not. So we'll go over the ones that we do know, at least for the most part. So now let's go to the lamp. So we can see kind of the lamp light that's coming down. It's kind of filling his face on this side. As we kind of get into for like the next couple shots, like later on, as they do more of a close shot, you can kind of see a little bit more, a little bit better. But yeah, that's just kind of filling in as more of the practical. It's also filling his face. Now this is where it gets a little bit interesting. On, of course, for the 3rd light, we see the light coming in through the window and kind of through this haze that's kind of spilling into, even into off camera potentially. And through the windows, it's kind of lighting up. But what's really interesting is this light is definitely for sure coming in this direction, kind of motivating the same direction from the light. But what gets really interesting is this 4th light, which is kind of being, I would say, I believe it's coming in. If you look, I like to look at shadows. Shadows and where the highlights are will often gives you an idea of where the lights are. So for right here on this step, see how it's kind of have a slight highlight on there. And you say, well, that could just be from the other wall reflecting back. That is true. But when I start looking in the shadow over here for this 4th light, notice how there's some light, there's a shadow that's casting from in the floor down below. And then if this light, if that is from this light, that would have to be at an angle of directly from slightly off. So I believe there is a light somewhere just right off the curtain coming in and kind of shooting in this direction and kind of hitting the ground. And potentially also it could be hitting on the character slightly a little bit as well, to create some of the blueness as well. So just from a slight kind of coming across. So that's kind of my that's what I believe that potentially could have happened. I would encourage you to just watch the movie and find out different scenes as what you like about it, and then dissect them down and figure out what do you like about it and what aspect of the scene you like. So there you have it, just 3 simple scenes broken down of what I think the lighting would be.